What will never be the same again after 2020? I was a nurse during the pandemic. One day, I was assigned to a patient who was in his 80s and had been in the hospital for a few days. He was in the ICU and on a ventilator. He was in bad shape. I was in full PPE and went into his room to check on him. He was awake and alert, but couldn't talk because of the ventilator. He was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't understand him. I got a pen and paper and he wrote, "Please call my wife." I told him I would, but he shook his head and wrote, "Now." I could tell he was getting upset, so I told him I would call her right away. I went to the nurse's station and called his wife. I told her that her husband was awake and alert and wanted to talk to her. She started crying and said she would be there as soon as possible. I went back into his room and told him that his wife was on her way. He smiled and nodded. I stayed with him until his wife arrived. She was in full PPE and went into his room. They held hands and she was crying. He was smiling and they were talking through the ventilator. I left the room to give them some privacy. About 10 minutes later, the monitor started going off. I ran into the room and he was coding. We started CPR and called a code blue. We worked on him for about 20 minutes, but he didn't make it. His wife was in the room the whole time, holding his hand. After we called it, she hugged me and thanked me for letting her see him. She said that he had told her that he loved her and that he was proud of their kids. She said that he was a good man and that she was going to miss him. I cried with her.